Hi BookTube, this is Kelly. Thank you so much for watching Books I'm Not Reading. I'm here today to do a Poetry for Beginners video, and the beginner in that title is me. I really hadn't read much poetry until I joined BookTube, and then I got a little bit curious and intrigued about it. Jason has read a lot of poetry, and we own a lot of poetry, and so I wanted to dive into some of those, and I usually just ask him to pick out a collection for me. And one of those was The Light Around the Body by Robert Bly. So that's the one I'm going to be talking about today. But inevitably, whenever I do one of these videos, I pester Jason with questions, and sometimes he's able to answer them, sometimes not, but he told me that he really feels like Robert Bly, who, by the way, is going to turn 94 in December, so he's been around for quite a while, is not going to be remembered for his poetry. He is going to be remembered for this book, Iron John, a book about men. Robert Bly was a leader, in the mytho-poetic men's movement. Okay, so this is my online search for what that actually means. It includes the use of myths and fairy tales taken from various cultures, served as a way to interpret challenges facing men in society. The people who were leading this, for the most part, were very clear that they were not trying to, this wasn't like fighting feminism by any means. And Jason was tremendously influenced by this book. Relationships with fathers, being able to express your emotions, being able to appreciate nature and articulate that and feeling grounded in it and that sort of thing. So I haven't read this book. Another book that we own is Robert Bly and Marion Woodman wrote The Maiden King, The Return of the Masculine and the Feminine. So Jason thinks that that is what Robert Bly will really be remembered for. But I probably first heard about Robert Bly from Jason in discussing Iron John, like in him talking to me about that book. So when he handed me the Robert Bly collection, I wasn't intimidated or afraid or anything like that. So it was either Robert Bly or another writer, I'm thinking maybe it was James Galvin, who read another poem that I loved. I absolutely loved it. And so it's not in this collection, unfortunately, but I'm going to read both. I'm going to read two poems to you today. So one of the things about The Light Around the Body that I found so fascinating was that even though it is very clearly specific about the time in which Robert Bly was writing these poems, just to give you an idea, it won the National Book Award for Poetry in 1967. And so yes, there's a whole section on poems about Vietnam. There are sections about the civil rights movement, and that feels very relevant today. The first poem in the book is called The Executive's Death. And honestly, like, it felt like a poem about 9/11 to me. There were a lot of poems in here that I don't really know. I mean, you know, he's got poems addressed to presidents and and political leaders. So it felt, in some ways, it felt strangely timely. But yeah, there's definitely things in here that are just like way over my head. But the language is just incredible. And throughout this collection, there are poems that there may just be like a line or two, and they're just just breathtaking. A line from the title poem I think is the most beautiful poem in the collection, and it's called Looking into a Face. Conversation brings us so close, opening the surfs of the body, bringing fish up near the sun, and stiffening the backbones of the sea. I have wandered in a face for hours, passing through dark fires. I have risen to a body not yet born, existing like light around the body, through which the body moves like a sliding moon. I really love that. And I read it to Jason a couple times, and again, like, what does this mean? What is this poem about? But we did have a conversation that, that there's definitely, it seems like it's about intimacy, looking into someone's face. What do you see? Are you passing through dark fires is about things they've gone through that they're sharing with you, or that kind of thing. But it just took my breath away. So again, like, I don't have like an intense analysis of this poem, but I just think it's really beautiful, and I think it's worth trying to hunt down this collection for, or I guess looking for it online. But I did feel like overall it's a very strong collection of poems, and I will probably read it again in the future, just because it really could have felt so dated, and it doesn't. It doesn't at all. So, okay, the other poem that I want to read to you, and I apologize, I printed my copy of it off online. I don't know which. I mean, Robert Bly he has published so many collections of poetry. He's done translations. He's done a lot of different things, nonfiction. So, I don't know where this poem is, but the name of the poem is The Face in the Toyota. So, if you want to read this yourself online, or if you can find it, let me know, please. If somebody knows what poetry collection it's in, please feel free to post that in the comments. So, this is The Face in the Toyota. Suppose you see a face in a Toyota one day, and you fall in love with that face, and it is her, and the world rushes by like dust blown down a Montana street, and you fall upward into some deep hole, and you can't tell God from a grain of sand, and your life is changed, except that now you overlook even more than you did before. And these ignored things come to bury you, and you are crushed, and your parents can't help anymore, and the woman in the Toyota becomes part of the world that you don't see. And now the grain of sand becomes sand again, and you stand on some mountain road weeping. I love this poem. I really, really love this poem. And I'm not totally sure that I can articulate why. I think that there are chance encounters in life. One of my favorite music videos, in slow motion, has these two people who are wearing very similar clothes, and they're both got like their earbuds in or whatever, and they pass each other on the street, and they're kind of staring at each other and looking at each other, but they keep going, they keep walking, like they don't stop and talk to each other and exchange phone numbers, even though, I mean, it's, yeah, like I said, even their clothes are similar to each other, and they just keep going back, and they look back over their shoulders at each other. And I've seen that in film too, where people are passing each other, and one of them looks back at one time, and by the time they've turned their head around, then the other person is looking back. Does that make sense? And I think there are moments where we're maybe at, well, not this year, but maybe you're at a concert in another city, or I don't know, whatever. Just again, like he says, like it's just moment. You know, you see a face in a car, and there's some kind of connection there. There's something that happens. Yeah, the one thing that I think of is this time in high school where I accidentally ran into I ran into a boy. We accidentally just like pushed each other on the shoulders. It wasn't intentional or anything like that. Like we were both not paying attention to each other. And he was a very cute young man. And he was way out of my league. But it was just this moment, like after we had hit each other in the shoulders, we turned around and he just gave me this $1 million smile, and I smiled back, and then then we both turned around and went our separate ways. And I'm not saying that was like a life-changing moment or anything like that, but it was just one of those kind of moments where, like we don't do anything. You can't stop the Toyota that's going by on that dusty Montana street. But I love how Bly talks about, like seeing that face, and it is her, and the her is the H is capitalized in her. And you fall upward into some deep hole, and you can't tell God from a grain of sand. And just how that moment is so life change, like you're so backwards and upside down, and that the biggest thing in the universe is the same thing as a grain of sand. You can't tell the difference between anything. Like perspective is just totally shifted, and your life has changed, except now you overlook even more than you did before. And these things come to bury you, right? Like sometimes we get lost in those moments and we can't get out of them. And then we lose those moments. We can't, and the woman in the Toyota becomes part of the world that you don't see. And then he brings us back to the present moment and says, and now the grain of sand becomes sand again, and you stand on some mountain road weeping. Because you can't catch the woman in the Toyota. And I mean, I don't think it's as literal as I'm probably taking it here, but I remember hearing that poem and it just blew me away. I loved it. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Like I said, I'm still really learning, and with each collection and each poem I read, I feel like I'm growing in this area, but I have a long, long way to go. Like I'm still back in junior high or something in terms of where I am with learning about poetry, but the only way you can do it is to just read it. And The Face in the Toyota, I've read that poem many times, and like I said, it's more of for me at least, it's more of an experience, like this idea of being like, you fall upward into some deep hole, like, wow, what a great line. So anyway, I would encourage you to check out Bly's poetry, because I do think it is worth reading, and that somehow he has managed to write a book in turbulent times in America, and now as we are in more turbulent times in America, it's still incredibly relevant, even though, like I said, he dresses the president in one poem and it's JFK. So yeah, anyway, so I would recommend that. I'm sorry that I don't have more to share about the mytho-poetic men's movement. I'm sure Jason could maybe fill you in more on that. I would love to hear if any of you have read Robert Bly. I have heard some people who don't like him, but tell me what you think down below in the comments section. Thank you so much for watching my Poetries for Beginners video, and I will talk to you soon, BookTube. Remember to be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and being kind to others can totally mean wearing a mask in a public place. It's all we have to do. So just have to do it all collectively together. Be kind to each other. All right. Talk to you soon, BookTube. Bye.